Starting a handyman business can be a great way to be your own boss, but it requires hard work and there's some things that you need to figure out before you actually start your business. So, my name is Alan Lee. Welcome to the Handyman Journey YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about exactly that. 10 things that you need to do, 10 things that you need to know before you start your handyman business. So let's hop into it. Number one, you need to do your research. You need to learn everything that you possibly can about the handyman industry. You need to learn everything that you possibly can about the handyman industry in your specific area, because my area where I do handyman services here in Sacramento, California might be different than your area. So do your research, make sure that you understand everything you need to understand about your area. One great thing that I did when I first started up my handyman business here in the area is I looked at other handyman that were in the area and I gave them a call. Only a few of them actually answered. That's one of the biggest hurdles is most of the time people are kind of competing and they won't answer the phone call. But what we want to get to is a higher place, not competition, but cooperation, right? We want to help each other out. We want to learn each other, what's working for them, and grow off of those platforms. So the people that did call me back gave me some really valuable information, told me kind of, what marketing works best in the area, what kind of pricing they're charging in the specific area, what kind of hurdles they have in the area. But do your market research, very important. Definitely figure out everything that you possibly can about the handyman industry and your specific area so that you can basically have the best launching point to launch your business off of. Here at the Handyman Journey YouTube channel, we have a bunch of resources where you can learn a whole lot about the handyman industry. So I would highly recommend you take a look at all of our previous videos, subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of content. Number two, identify your target market. This is a very, very important thing that I think gets overlooked a lot. You need to identify the type of person that you want to work for and the type of person that values what you have to bring to the table. We hear this kind of come up a lot when we get into the pricing conversation as far as handymen are concerned. People say that, oh, I don't want to raise my prices too high because I'll start losing clientele. Well, in all actuality, what I've learned over my years of being in the handyman industry, as well as talking to many other handymen that I actually coach, is that when you raise or elevate your pricing, you also raise or elevate your clientele. So you need to figure out what kind of clientele you want to work for, and that will help you establish a whole lot of systems in your business so that you can meet the needs of that specific clientele. There's different types of clientele. I'll give you a few ideas of that. You can target retirement home communities. Those are huge, especially in this area. There's a lot of handymen that target just those areas, and they're going to need specific things that other areas may not need. You could target more higher end, houses, and that's perfectly fine as well, but there's going to be different needs that are going to be required of you in those specific areas. You could target realtors, you could target property managers. Again, all of these different niches require something different of the handyman, right? For us specifically, we target a much more higher end clientele. So we have all of our guys have nice uniforms, they show up on time, they have nice trucks. We have a bunch of different systems and processes in place so that we can meet the direct needs of those clienteles. It's very important to figure out what kind of clientele you want to attract and set your business up accordingly. And number three is develop a business plan. This is something that's huge that we find that a lot of handymen actually just pass over entirely. Sitting down and taking the time to create a business plan is so important for your business, because it will help you establish goals of where you want this business to be in 3 to 5 to 10 years, whatever it may be. What do you want out of this business? It's very, very important. A lot of people just start up in this industry just because they have some tools and they're looking to make a little bit extra money, right? That's perfectly fine, but you need to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, there's no way that you're going to get there. We actually have a whole course at the Handyman Academy that walks people through establishing a business plan and really figuring out what they want to get out of their business. It's very, very important because, again, establishing your goals helps you figure out your path to get there. If you know your why, your next steps make perfect sense. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's perfect, makes perfect sense, and I'm going to go that route. Another quick note about developing a business plan is once you have that goal, you can therefore set up systems and processes to track your progress to hit that goal. If you don't have those business plans, you're not going to be able to accurately set up those tracking systems and processes. Having a business plan really just gives you kind of a foundation to build your business off of. If you don't know what kind of foundation you're building off of, you're just going to be building willy-nilly. And believe me, this business will very, very shortly become a job. And that's not what we're looking for. We are in this business to create freedom, not necessarily create a job. So a business plan helps you drastically in that manner. It takes a lot of time to kind of set up the foundations of a business plan, but it is very well worth it. Number 4, you need to get all of the permits and the licenses that you need in your specific area to operate legally. So this varies from state to state, country to country, city to city. It's very, very important to do your research on this. When we first started up our handyman industry, our handyman business here in Sacramento, California, I researched this very heavily. I actually went to the Contractor State License Board and met with them quite often. I took some courses on contractor handyman laws, things like that, so I could better understand it. Some contractor handyman laws are very gray. There's a lot of gray areas and it's really hard to understand, but you need to do your best to try and understand it. This, you also may need to go back to people who are actively involved in the handyman industry in your area to try and get a better grasp on what some of the laws are in your area. But most of the time, all you really need is a business license in the city that you operate in. And there may be some stipulations as far as like workload. You can't do more than X amount of work, per job, per project, whatever it is. Some areas don't really have a cap at all, so you can do as much work as you want. But again, it's very, very important to do your research and get the appropriate licenses and permits that you need to operate legally as a handyman. Number 5, you need to think about setting up a business entity for your business. Now, if you don't have an entity, you can operate just as what they call a sole proprietor, and that's perfectly fine. Again, I would highly recommend to talk to a CPA. I will put a link down in the description below with who I use. That is basically my CPA and who kind of gives me all the advice as far as this stuff goes. But what she had told me was that I should not create an LLC or anything like that until I'm bringing in about $70,000 or $80,000 a year. So when you're just starting out, just operate as a sole proprietor. Just know that that's going to drastically increase your expenses because as a sole proprietor, you have self-employment tax that you have to account for. So that is a completely different kind of category when you're talking about figuring out what your expenses are for pricing and things like that. If you are a sole proprietor, you need to think about that. That could even be 30% self-employment tax, whereas once you incorporate to an LLC, S-Corp, whatever it is, your taxes change and vary from there. But again, I am not a tax professional. I would highly recommend you talk to a CPA, and I will put a link in the description below with who I deal with. Her name is Dee Stone. Absolutely fantastic. She does a great job and really, really great at educating her clientele as far as this goes. So definitely figure out how you want to structure your business, what kind of entity you want to create for your business. Maybe you just want to stay a sole proprietorship up until you make a certain amount of money, and that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you are accounting for those taxes when you do so. Number 6, this is very important. Get business insurance. I cannot stress this enough. If you are going out there and doing handyman work without general liability insurance, you're taking on a lot of risk. That's kind of a scary deal. You can get general liability insurance for it's not crazy expensive. I actually use Next Insurance. I'll put a link in the description below where you guys can get more information on that. I believe it's next-insurance.com. But generally, as a sole proprietor, so just you and your business, at least a few years back when I first started out, it's about $900 to $1,000 per year of what you'll be looking for about $1 million policy in general liability insurance. Obviously, as you grow and as you have employees like we do, the general liability insurance does go up. But this is a very important step and you do not want to skip it. Number 7, get the appropriate tools that you need for the work that you want to do. So you need to figure out what type of work you want to do and what kind of tools are going to be needed for that specific job. When I first started in this industry, I basically just had general hand tools. I had a circular saw, stuff like that. And as jobs came up that I needed more higher end tools, I would go ahead and buy those tools for that specific job. For instance, when I started, I didn't have a miter saw, but then a job came up where I needed a miter saw, so I went and I bought one. That I find is usually the best way to kind of scale your business and grow your business if you want to cash flow it. Sure, you can take a loan out right at the get-go and buy $30,000 worth of tools and you'll be set, but you don't necessarily need to do that. You can actually get started with very little money out of your pocket and kind of just grow your tools as you go. Another great thing that you want to think about is how are you going to store those tools? So not only having those tools, but how are you going to store them? How are you going to bring them into the client's house? One great thing that I have found, especially when you're just starting out, is one of those bucket liners that you could just store a whole bunch of tools in, put it over a 5-gallon bucket. Those work great because you can haul that into a client's house and you can have all of your tools just an arm's reach away, which is really nice. And then you also got to think about, are you going to store these tools in the back of your truck? And then what are you going to do in the evening? Are you going to haul everything out of your truck, put it in your garage? Are you going to put a camper on your truck where you can lock it? Are you going to get a tool trailer? These are all very important things to think about. When I first started out, everything was in the back of my truck, and I literally hauled everything into the garage every night. And then shortly after I started, maybe about a year or so after, I went ahead and got myself a tool trailer, and that was a fantastic purchase. Built that thing out, and that thing sustained me for quite a few years up until we moved up to a service van, and I don't think I'd ever go back. But it's very important to think about these things, having the right tools for the right job. Number 8, set your prices. Now this is huge and a lot of people have questions about this specific topic. We actually wrote a book a few years back called the Handyman Pricing Handbook. I would highly recommend you check out that book. I'll put a link in the description below, but you can also purchase that book on Amazon. Great book, walks you through how to establish your pricing as a handyman. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to what your expenses are as a handyman. Everyone's expenses are different, so everyone's pricing is going to be different. And everyone is going after a different clientele, so everyone is going to have different pricing, right? So that person who's maybe targeting realtors versus that person who's targeting more higher-end client, they may have different expenses just because they may have different uniforms, they may have different trucks, they may have different processes and systems, they may hire different individuals, so therefore they have higher expenses. It all depends, right? And if you're doing a certain type of work, right? If you're doing a lot of roof work, you might need a more higher-end general liability insurance, which again might raise your expenses. But I would highly recommend you go through the Handyman Pricing Handbook to get some more information on pricing so that you can establish your pricing correctly, because a lot of people just throw a number out there. That's what I did when I first started out, and at the end of the day, you realize very quickly that you're actually losing money, right? You feel like, oh, that's a pretty high number that I'm charging because at my old job, I only made X amount, but at the end of the day, you're actually losing money because that pricing needs to cover your expenses plus some for break even and profit. So very important to actually go through the actual formula. We actually go through the formula in the Handyman Pricing Handbook about once a month at the end of every month, just to kind of review last month and see how we have kind of tracked as far as our pricing. Are we still charging enough? Are we charging too much? Have the price of materials gone up? Blah, blah, blah. So pricing is very, very important. You can never spend too much time on pricing. We also at the Handyman Journey YouTube channel have a bunch of videos on pricing, as well as a very in-depth course in the Handyman Academy, our coaching program on pricing. So if you're interested in that, you can check out the link in the description below. Number 9 is also very important, is market your business. Now, marketing is huge and something that should not be taken lightly. Now, especially in the brink of the last few years, right? You didn't really have to market a whole lot because word of mouth was so huge. People were staying home and they did work from home, and so they just had work that needed to be done. They weren't going on vacation. But nowadays, marketing is very, very, very important. It has always been important. It's something that you need to think about investing in. When I first started out in business, my number one reach out was to my marketing guy, Jason Call. And I would highly recommend you guys do the same thing. Reach out to him at handymanmarketingpros.com. He is the marketing expert for the handyman industry. And again, his name is Jason Call. I'll put a link in the description below, handymanmarketingpros.com. Fantastic. The single best thing I've ever done for my business is hiring Jason Call to do all of my marketing. He creates fantastic websites, great SEO content, and now he runs all of my Google ads, and he really does a great job bringing in work, bringing in leads for our business so that we can sell them and actually go out and do the work. So absolutely fantastic. There's also a whole lot of other things that you need to think about when you're marketing. Are you going to have decals on the side of your truck or trailer? That's huge. Just being in someone's neighborhood and having your verbiage on the side of your truck really helps out a lot. It's a moving billboard, so it's great. Another thing, business cards, uniforms, yard signs. Like, what are you going to do to get the name out, to get your name out in your area? When you're first starting out, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to do a lot of work. You might have to, put some boots to pavement and start knocking on doors, but that might be what's needed to happen. So, for instance, if you are going full-time and say you only have 10 hours worth of work, 10 hours worth of build work in a week, well, the other 30 hours in that week should be spent on marketing. You should treat this business like a full-time business, even if you're not fully busy. So make sure you are hitting the pavement, make sure you're calling people, you're calling realtors, whatever you need to do to get leads in the door, to get that phone to start ringing so that you can get busy. A great resource for that is we recently did a video with Joel down in Bakersfield, and he had a lot of great tips as far as marketing is concerned. He's just starting out, and he laid out kind of his 30-day plan as marketing goes. I'll link that video up here so you can take a look at that. And the 10th thing that you need to do is provide excellent customer service. Now, it's been said many times in the handyman industry, if you simply answer the phone and show up on time, you've already won 3/4 of the battle. The biggest thing in the handyman industry is there's a lot of people out there that just simply don't answer the phone, and they don't show up when they say they're going to show up, and they don't do the work for what they say they're going to do the work for. So if you provide excellent customer service, you will win a lot of jobs, and you will do really well as a handyman in your area. So providing excellent customer service, the way that I train my guys and I coach my clients is treat everyone like they are your grandmother. How would you want your grandmother to be treated, right? That's how I want you to treat your customers. And if you treat people that way, they are going to start treating you that exact same way. And it's going to be this mutual respect, and your guys' relationship will go far. They will continue to call you for years on end, and they will be a client for life. Customer service is very, very, very important, and you need to figure out what customer service looks like for you reaching the specific clientele that you want to reach. A few other things that you should do that will help you out in the long run is start establishing a network. Start establishing a network of other handyman, other contractors, other tradespeople in your area that you can refer people to. If there's work that you do not do, things that you don't want to do, things that you're not qualified to do, whatever it is, I would highly recommend that you have a community, a network of people around you that you can refer people to. Just because someone calls you and you can't do the work for them doesn't mean that you need to blow them off. You can actually retain that client by referring them to another person, because if you are the resource that people call to figure anything out and to get access to any tradespeople, you're going to be very valuable in this industry. So that is very important. Another thing that I would caution you with is be ready to work hard, okay? This business is not all fluffy bunnies and rainbows. You're gonna need to work for it, you're gonna need to do some hard work, and there may be a little bit of suffering along the way. But if you stick to it, especially if you get involved in the Handyman Academy coaching program and learn how to actually grow a business so that it runs without you, you can have a lot of success and a lot of freedom. So it is very much worth it if you put in the hard sweat and tears. But there's going to be sweat and tears, so be prepared to work hard. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this video. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Drop me a comment in the comment section below. Also, like this video and subscribe to this channel, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.